learned anything quite like this before. Thankfully, it was a prerequisite to being here. So thank you very much, Ginny, for having me. I'm very grateful for the opportunity to be here today. So see some of the previous speakers too, which is awesome. And if you haven't yet known Ginny, I'm wearing my green just kind of like this on today, because I forgot today was the impression today. So I wanted to mention, just so you have a little context, the reason why I'm actually speaking about what I'm speaking about is because last year I was diagnosed with ovarian cancer. And it was something that actually, I have these little cards here, which maybe Ginny can hand them out, that actually have symptoms on the card of what ovarian cancer symptoms are. And the reason I give you that card is because I didn't know what the symptoms were. Many women do not know what the symptoms are. Many men don't know what the symptoms are. And oftentimes it goes undiagnosed or misdiagnosed for long periods of time. So if you suspect that it could be ovarian cancer, odds are very good that it probably is not that. But if you suspect it is, on the back of the card there's actually 3 tests that you should ask your doctor about. And that, in conjunction with everything else, will give him or her some idea of whether you are dealing with ovarian cancer. And I have actually become very verbal about this because there are many women who have actually died because of a diagnosis. So if you have any questions about this at some point, please feel free to ask me about my experience. I've been blogging actively at relatetocancer.com since day one. So I'm more than happy to share, and I find that I am not cancer. Even though people will look at me and get scared. I'm actually a hypnotist too, so I'm sometimes not sure what people are more scared of, the hypnosis or cancer. But either way, I've got to the point where I can say cancer in the same sentence I can talk about white bread. So it's the kind of thing that I really would love for people to get more comfort around, because as a hypnotist, I also know that the unfamiliar is uncomfortable to us. Our unconscious mind seeks the familiar. Our unconscious mind is comfortable with the familiar. So even if we're miserable, even if it doesn't work for us, we will stay there because that is what makes us comfortable, because it's familiar. And that is one of the reasons why I believe that cancer, among other things in life, is actually quite taboo, because it's something that's way out there, it's something that people aren't familiar with, something people aren't talking about. And yet, I was telling some people earlier today, what was fascinating to me is that because I'm so verbal and so honest and so open, I'm hearing all kinds of stories of people who are dealing with cancer. And I'm flabbergasted, because it's a huge deal and people are dealing with it, and there's no conversation around it. No one will talk about it. No one will talk about it when it's happening. No one will talk about it after it happens. It's an ongoing saga. So something I'm very passionate about, and I had said that this would be about changing your relationship with cancer, but it's really about life. It's really about changing any kind of relationship you may have. It has to do with romantic relationships, relationships at work. It's just life. Anything that you deal with in cancer has to do with what you deal with in life. So basically, when you are dealing with a circumstance, you have 3 options. You can stay with it as it is, you can change your dynamic and your perspective to the situation, or you can pretty much just walk away. Now, if you stay with it as it is, it might actually be fine. You have to ask yourself that question. It's something that's very relative. You have to decide for yourself. Does it work for you? If it doesn't work for you, the next step is trying to figure out how in the world you're going to change it. And just a little bit ago, I was saying that our unconscious mind loves the familiar. So if you're uncomfortable with something, it's going to want you to stay uncomfortable. It's going to want you to stay exactly where you are. So there's going to be a challenge to find the way to get away from it. And part of that is just in the doing. And sometimes if you actually know what it is that makes a difference, if you know what it is that's stopping you, it's easier to change. And you're not kind of beating yourself over the head, because if you've ever tried to lose weight or do something else, you kind of go, why is this not working? It's not working because your unconscious has an association to something. Maybe it's a matter of protecting you. And you think that if I lose the weight, I'll no longer be protected. And I feel like I'm talking like a freight train, so if you're not catching me, please let me know. There's a nervous New Yorker inside of me right now, so please feel free to let me know. And also too, when I get passionate about something, I tend to talk really fast. So please do let me know. So part of the challenge of changing anything is just recognizing that you want to change it. And then the other part of the challenge is trying to figure out how you're going to do it. As hypnotists, the wonderful thing is I can help people tap into that unconscious part of you. And you'd be amazed how simple it is and how complex because it's not something you're consciously aware of. I actually tapped into something one time where I had a situation with an ex-boyfriend, and basically he had told me that he was going to marry someone else, and I was like tears for a whole day. I was miserable for a whole day. I didn't know what was going on. Everybody was being logical with me. I was being logical with myself, and I couldn't figure out what was going on. And I sat there, 24 hours later I sat there, I remember where I was sitting and everything, and I started to write, and I realized that I had associated him with all the things that I wanted in life. I associated him with the family, the house, all these different things. And when I couldn't have him, but since he had become those things, I couldn't have those things. So that's why I was so upset. That's why it was like ding, ding, ding. And all of a sudden I realized what an empowering thing that was to realize. And I was going to say I wasn't hypnotized, but I probably wasn't because I was so tired at that point. But it was one of those things where you don't need hypnosis, but when you realize it, as soon as I realized it, I was so calm. It was incredible the difference of how I felt when I realized that. So realizing what is really going on, which, by the way, our unconscious guides us 88 to 90% of the time. 88 to 90%, which people are amazed. But our ego, our willpower, all those things, they're in the conscious part of our mind. Ever wonder why willpower is so hard to do? It's working against what else is going on in the unconscious, which totally tries to take care of us. I mean, it's not trying to sabotage us. It's not trying to hurt us. It's actually trying to help us. So the other option is to stay with things using traction, change our perspective. So part of changing your perspective can come from that awareness. Part of it just might even be a logical thing. If you start to separate the pieces, you may realize, like I did, that those things are collapsed into one. And you can start to realize that by separating them, oh, this doesn't really mean what I thought. It actually means something else. And then the other possibility is to walk away. And if you really care about someone, you're not going to want to walk away from them. Although many people do. They'll have a blissful, they'll pretend like something doesn't exist. Especially in my case with dealing with cancer. People want to pretend that everything's just fine. There's excessive optimism that people have because they're very uncomfortable with the situation. And I find that a lot of times what people will do is they will say things more for their benefit than for the benefit of the person. They're uncomfortable with whatever it is. So what they'll do as a result is they'll try to make it better for themselves. And of course, I do it too. No, I'm not criticizing it or anything else. It's just an observation that oftentimes we are actually trying to do something for ourselves by actually saying something to someone else. So I say all these things to you because, one, like I said earlier, people do not really talk about this stuff. And if you know anyone who is dealing with cancer, or dealing with an illness, or dealing with life and being challenged, you're going to be in a place, especially if it's something you're uncomfortable with or unfamiliar with, where you're not going to want to be there for them. But that is probably a time and a place where they're going to probably need you to be there. And if you at least recognize what is going on, you recognize why you're doing what you're doing, why you're saying what you're saying, how you're being, if you at least recognize it, you have a better chance of changing it and of growing and being able to be there for your friend. I had a friend throughout this who said, I feel helpless. I can't talk to you. And I said to her, if you want to feel helpful, talk to me. That's all I asked for. Just talk to me. And you know what? She still couldn't talk to me. So we're very selfish. We're really more about us and our comfort zone than we are about other people. And when you start to make changes, the polarities change. So what once was comfortable and familiar to you now becomes a discomfort for the And what was once uncomfortable to you and new now becomes the new comfort zone. But it takes the willingness to make a change, it takes an awareness to make the change, and it takes a lot more than you might even think you have. And I have to tell you, before I was diagnosed with cancer, oh boy, please don't talk to me about it. Please, like I had huge discomfort. You're scared of something, I practically guarantee you it's going to come knocking. That's what happened to me. I was terrified of it. I didn't want to talk about it. So the more you get yourself aware, the more you can learn about something, the more comfortable you can get with it, the more likely you will change your relationship with it. So I'm not even sure what I've got going on here. I actually, 7 minutes? 8 minutes. I actually wrote something for today, and then I was like, scrap that. So I just thought I would see what came out. So does anybody have any questions for me? I'd be happy to answer any questions about anything. Let me give you a microphone.
I'm breast cancer recently. When I got 3 months ago, I was diagnosed with spectrum. It's not just talking to people. It's not just you talking to people. It's letting, for instance, if I tell you that I want you to listen to me, talk to me as well as to talk to me. So keep it a two-way conversation, because that cancer survivor feels very isolated. It's scared to death. They don't know what's coming. It's really helpful if they can get some of those emotions out. Let them cry. It's okay. They'll feel better.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yes, if you're familiar with Jessica. Hilda Radner, for those of you that are old enough to remember, she got her brain cancer in 1989. And she created her husband, who was Gene Wilder, and Joanna Bo. I created Gilda's Clubs, which are non-residential cancer support clinics. And I've been a long time staff person volunteer there. And it's exactly what you're saying. It's a safe place to be able to say, I'm scared. But you don't have any cancer. But to be able to do this, it's a safe place to be able to talk about what you don't want to talk about. And less, I don't know how long you say.
So my last chemo treatment was back in November, and thankfully everything seems to be fine. I have to go back for 3-month checkups for a couple of years. So, and I tell you, if you're ever not sure what to say to somebody who's dealing with cancer, you saying it's a two-way conversation, that helps. But if you're really dumbfounded, just nod your head, listen, and just say, that sucks. Because it's incredible. It's empowering to be able to do it. So, yes.
Besides the chemotherapy, did you change your habits in terms of eating healthier?
I actually am starting to eat much healthier. I'm eating much more organic. Sorry there, John, but I'm quite get off the meat train. But I think about these things. I question what the right route is, but I definitely am much more aware now of what I'm eating. Much more cautious about how I'm eating. I also did a lot of alternative therapies. I did Reiki, I did massage, I did reflexology. I actually used hypnosis when I wasn't being treated. I would do chemotherapy for 3.5 hours and have hypnosis that I had created for myself. And the time would just fly by. It was amazing. And people always ask me, oh, it's kind of hard to know whether you did or not, because I have to have exactly 2 with me, having the same experience except one off on one track and one off on the other track. And basically, robotic motion didn't work. The difficulty for me is there aren't two of me. But the one thing I know really did make a difference was I would have my blood pressure taken before and after treatment. And what would happen was my blood pressure would always be lower after treatment, which I understand is unusual. And sometimes it would almost be low. And the nurses would laugh at me because I would just put my headphones on and I'd be gone. I'd be gone for 3.5 hours. And it was just awesome. I'd wake up, I'd feel awesome and the best night's sleep ever. I almost look forward to, on days like that because it was just incredible. So, any other questions, comments? Exactly.
I admire what you're doing because I do live by some principle where I try to always do my best to be able to I'm also a jiu-jitsu practitioner, which is something new in the area, where we teach people how to work on the energy of themselves every day. And I have worked with people who have cancer. There is a lot of information available about it. I think it's in Kentucky. There is a hospital where people work with it. And the result is fantastic. People can work all the cancer. And it's awesome.
All right, well, thank you. All right, well, I know I'm running out of time here, so I just want to thank you all. I love the fact that there are more films, so thank you for stopping by. Again, if anybody has any questions, I am really pretty much an open book when it comes to my experience. You'll even see videos on my blog, relatecancer.com, where I'm crying, no makeup, no eyebrows, no hair, a mess. So thank you very much.